Below is your Quash full cinematic YouTube voiceover script, 1,700 words, written in natural American storytelling style with 3-act structure, new names, new details, smooth emotional pacing, lived-in dialogue, no overuse of periods, and a strong call to action at the end. A script voiceover style, 1550 words. People always ask me when exactly everything changed. And honestly, it was the moment a 15-year-old rich kid lifted a crystal glass over my head and said with that smug little grin, "Stay still. I want to see how someone like you looks in real crystal." Then came the splash, the gasp from the crowd, the sickening laughter from his parents, and that warm sting of wine running down my neck. That moment wasn't humiliation. It was ignition. My name is Watch Morgan Hale, and what you're about to hear isn't a corporate scandal or some motivational speech. It's the story of how one family's arrogance pushed me so far that I stopped playing nice, stopped pretending not to notice the whispers, and finally decided to burn the whole rotten system to the ground. Starting with the people who tried to ruin me. It all happened at the Art Langston Foundation Centennial Gala, one of those charity events that's more champagne than charity. I was supposed to be the guest of honor that night, the woman who turned a garage startup called Solara Tech into one of the fastest-growing clean energy innovators in the country. That's funny, right? You fight poverty, discrimination, burnout. Everything America throws at you when you don't come from money. And the reward is a fancy ballroom full of people who barely look at you unless there's a camera. I walked in wearing this soft, rose-colored gown I had splurged on my hair, pinned up like I actually belonged in a place with marble floors and chandeliers the size of cars. And, honestly, the first couple minutes felt good. People clapped, shook my hand, asked about partnerships and projections, and for a second I let myself think. Maybe I finally made it. Then I saw him, Evan Langston Jr., heir to the Langston dynasty, strolling toward me with that lazy confidence every privileged kid seems to be born with. His tie was loose blazer open hair, purposely messy in that expensive, private school kind of way. Behind him were his little rich kid disciples' phones already raised like they were waiting for a show. "You must be the famous Morgan," he said, dragging out the words, rocking back on his heels. "Welcome to our party." I could smell the wine before I saw the glass tilt. A dark red arc shot through the light and splashed across my face. My dress soaked instantly, the silk turning a bruised, ugly shade. People gasped. Some covered their mouths. Others started recording because humiliation is entertainment these days. But what cut the deepest were the laughs. Evan's mother, Claudia Langston, clapped like she'd seen a magic trick. His father, William, gave that booming laugh rich men have when they're pretending something cruel is just a joke. "Boys will be boys," he said, waving a hand as if I were a spilled drink they could mop up later. And I stood there, frozen. Not because I was shocked, but because I had lived versions of this moment my entire life. Sometimes in classrooms, sometimes in boardrooms, sometimes in subtle slights that people swear were just misunderstandings. But, right there under those chandeliers, something in me finally snapped into place. Evan smirked. "Cat got your tongue." And I heard myself say calmly, almost too softly, "Thank you, Evan. You've just made my decision very, very easy." He blinked. The room shifted, and I walked past him, wine dripping down my arms, straight to the stage where I was supposed to give a speech about partnership and shared vision. Yeah, that didn't happen. I looked out at the crowd, every phone recording, every whisper holding its breath, and I said, "Effective immediately. Solara Tech is withdrawing from the Langston Energy Partnership discussions." A $700 million deal. Gone with one sentence. The ballroom exploded into chaos. William's face turned purple. Claudia lowered her phone like it had betrayed her and Evan. Well, the grin finally disappeared. That was Act 1. Act 2 began when I got home and found a message waiting for me from an unknown number. It said, "My name is Wat Della Ross. I worked for the Langstons for 29 years. What you experienced tonight is not new. I have proof. If you want to hold them accountable, I'm ready." I met her the next morning in a tiny corner cafe far from downtown. She was 76, hair silver, and pinned neatly, clothes modest posture straight like she still carried invisible trays. And she placed this heavy leather satchel between us like it might break the table. I started keeping records years ago. She said, her voice steady, because people like them don't get caught unless someone refuses to forget. Inside that satchel were 3 decades of journals, time-stamped and detailed, handwritten with the precision of someone who knew the world wouldn't believe her unless every line was perfect. Pay records altered, employees fired after complaining, racial slurs muttered over dinner like background music, fraudulent contracts, off-the-books bonuses. Every ugly truth carefully archived by a woman they treated like furniture. But the worst was this. They planned to use my company's partnership to hide nearly $300 million in missing funds. The deal wasn't about innovation. It was about covering up embezzlement disguised as failed investments. That's when I realized the wine wasn't humiliation. It was a warning shot from people who thought they owned the world. People who believed consequences were for everyone but themselves. We spent hours reviewing documents. Della's voice shook only once when she told me, "I stayed quiet because I needed the paycheck. But when I saw them laugh at you, I saw myself again, and I couldn't stay quiet anymore." I promised to protect her, but the Langstons weren't going down without a fight. Within 48 hours, their PR machine launched a coordinated smear campaign. Articles appeared about my emotional instability. Old photos were taken out of context. Someone even leaked medical records from a surgery I'd had years ago, spinning it as evidence of erratic behavior. And then came the real bomb, a doctored surveillance clip, supposedly showing me cornering Evan before the gala and threatening him. The video was fake, obvious in the way the shadows didn't match how my supposed reflection didn't align with the movement. But truth doesn't matter online, only speed. And the Langstons had speed. My board panicked. Partners froze contracts. Protesters gathered outside my home. And one night, someone spray-painted slurs across my door while the police sat in their cars doing absolutely nothing. I was escorted into my safe room as reporters swarmed the lawn. I sat against the wall watching false headlines scroll across every screen, listening to strangers debate my sanity, my past, my worth. I'll admit it, I cracked. Just for a moment. You know that feeling when the whole world is screaming the same lie and you can't shout loud enough to stop it? Yeah, that happened. But morning came, and with it clarity. My team and I spent hours analyzing the doctored footage frame by frame until we found the flaw that would save everything. In one shot, the reflection in a metal door handle showed an empty hallway. Even though the video claimed Evan and I were right there. Their editor forgot reflections don't lie. That was our opening. I scheduled a public live press conference. No cuts, no edits, just truth. I walked onto that stage wearing a crisp white suit, clean unshaken, and pointed at the giant screen behind me. "Watch closely," I said, and we broke the fake video apart piece by piece with forensic analysts explaining every splice, every altered pixel, every inconsistency. Then I brought Della on stage. She opened her journals, read entries aloud, played audio recordings of William ordering documents destroyed, of Claudia mocking staff of Evan, laughing about ruining people for fun. We showed emails, financial trails, offshore accounts, tax fraud, discrimination complaints buried by payouts. The truth wasn't a flame. It was a wildfire. And that was the moment everything flipped. Federal agents raided Langston Energy by sunset. Employees fled the building like someone had shouted, "Fire!" William was arrested running through a parking garage clutching an expensive briefcase stuffed with shredded papers. Claudia was taken from their mansion in a silk robe, mascara running as cameras rolled. Evan was removed from school for mandatory counseling, suddenly not so smug. Meanwhile, Solaritech's stock soared higher than it had in years. Partners reinstated deals. People flooded the internet with messages of support. And Della, well, she became a symbol. So I created something in her honor. The Della Ross Integrity Institute. A place where whistleblowers could be protected, funded, defended, believed. Act 3 ended the night I stood in the exact same ballroom where Evan poured wine over me. Same chandeliers, same marble floor, same crowd. But this time, they were all standing for me, cheering, thanking me for exposing corruption that had gone unchecked for decades. And yeah, I walked a little slower, maybe on purpose, letting every step erase what happened before. I told them the truth. Power doesn't come from money or last names. It comes from refusing to stay quiet when quiet is what they expect. But here's where I'll leave you with the part that sparks debate. Even after everything, after the arrests and the praise and the victory, part of me still wonders, would any of this have come to light if Evan hadn't poured that wine? Would I have walked away from the deal? Would Della have come forward? Would the world ever have seen what was hiding behind charity galas and polite smiles? So now I want to hear from you. Was I right to blow up the deal on the spot? Would you have walked away quietly or fought back even knowing they'd try to destroy you? Do the wealthy get away with too much, or did I go too far? Tell me in the comments what you think justice looks like. Because stories like this only change the world when we talk about them.